Hi there, you're welcome to my channel. So in this video we are going to look at the WASSCE 2024 paper 2 essay question. Now this is a fresh paper. Now bear in mind that nowadays WAEC does not allow the paper 2 out, and therefore it is very difficult for you to get access to the paper 2. However, we are lucky we have one copy here. So because of that, candidates are expected to write their number in this box over here, their index number over here, their signature also over here, and then the date of the exams also here. All right, before we even start to look at the questions, I would like to remind you to subscribe to our channel if you are new, and if you have already subscribed, we thank you very much for your support. We also wish you all the best in your exams. Now let's start with the history paper 2. So before you begin, you should read these instructions over here. All right, you should read all these examination instructions over here before you start to write your paper, or to even write on the paper. Now this portion is for exams only, so you don't have to write. It's for examiners only. You don't have to write anything over here. It's for the use of the examiners only. Now when you come down, you'll see a box over here. All right, you see a box over here. Now you are supposed, or you are required, to write the number of the questions that you answered on this paper over here, in order of how you answered them. So for instance, let's assume that out of your first question, or the first question you answered was question number 3. You write it here, 3. After 3 you answered, let's say, question number 6. You then come and write 6 here. After 6 you answered, say, 9. You then come and write 9 here, and the last question, say, you answered was 1. You write 1 here. All right, then in that order, and that will help the examiner when he or she is marking your script. So now let's dive into the questions proper. So this is paper 2 essay, 60 minutes. Answer 4 questions in all, choosing at least 1 question from each section. So there are 3 sections here, section A, B, and C, and you are to answer at least 1 question on each of the sections. So you answer 1 from section A, 1 from section B, then 1 from section C. Then you can choose the 4th one from any of the sections. Is that okay? Now let's begin with the questions. Now so question number 1 says, identify any 5 major developments that took place with the beginning of village or community life. Okay, we will look at the answers to the questions when we are done looking at all the questions. So 5 developments that took place with the beginning of village life or community life, and this is very interesting question. You know, we'll so think about it. We'll come back to it. Now 2, highlight any 5 roles played by the Tuareg in the development of the trans-Saharan trade. And this question, or this topic, also is an objective topic. So, but also bear in mind, I will do a separate video for the objectives, so you can scan through the channel. You may see the objectives in the playlist, the WASSCE questions. Then we have here, identify any 5 factors that facilitated the spread of ancient Egyptian civilization. We also take a look at this question over here. Now the section B says 4. So question number 4 says, name any 3 groups that comprised the Moli Dagbani in pre-colonial Ghana. So the groups that made up the Moli Dagbani. Very interesting. You write them. Then the 4 says, highlight any 4 factors that accounted for the easy invasion of northern Ghana and the defeat of its indigenous inhabitants. We all know that the indigenous inhabitants of the north were the Sisala, the Vagala, and the Tampulinsi and Co. And they were invaded by foreigners, the Moli Dagbani, the Gonja and Co. So what were the factors that led to the invasion, to the defeat of the indigenous people of the North. Then question number 5 says, list any 3 groups of people that had a non-centralized system of administration in the northern zone of Ghana. And here they are basically talking about the indigenous people in the north. Now, question number 5b says, identify 4 functions of the Tindana among the early settlers of the northern zone of Ghana. So the Tindana, you are to give us 4 functions of the Tindana. Also interesting. Now, question number 6 says, name the 3 ways through which transportation of goods and services was carried out in Ghana before the coming of the Europeans. So how were goods being transported in Ghana before the coming of the Europeans? Then the 6b says, in what 4 ways did Ghana benefit from long distance trade before the European era? So the importance of long distance trade before the European era. Interesting question. Now the last section says, question 7 says, highlight any 5 factors that worked against the success of the National Liberation Movement, the NLM, in Ghana. So basically, they are also asking you to talk about the failures of the NLM. All right. Now 8 says, identify any 5 contributions of Sir Gardner Gatchesberg to the development of the health sector in Ghana. This question is very interesting, and I know that a lot of students may write everything that you know about Gatchesberg. Here they have squeezed you to the extent that they are not even allowing you to talk about social, but one social point, which is health sector. So you talk about that. Then the last one, very interesting question, which says, highlight any 5 reasons to support the assertion that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was one of the outstanding nationalist leaders in Ghana. Outstanding nationalist leaders in Ghana. This question too is very, very tricky. You may find a lot of students who will write about the achievement of Nkrumah, but when you critically look at this question, it is not actually asking you to talk about the achievement of Nkrumah, but it is just asking you to assess Nkrumah from the time he arrived in Ghana in 1947 up to the time that he gained independence for Ghana in 1957. Within that period, what made him outstanding? You understand? What made him outstanding as compared to his other nationalists? And so it's very, very tricky, and I'll leave it to you to think about it. Good. So these were the paper, end of paper. So now let's take a look at the questions. All right. So let's look at the questions for the so the first question had to do with 5 developments that took place with the beginning of village life or community, right? Good. So these were the 5 things that took place. Okay, these were the 5 things. The first one was farming. Farming took place right after village life started. Then you can read these for yourself, some explanations. Then also there was change over to food production. That one too was a factor because man was living a nomadic life, but after the beginning of village life, man settled and started to produce. Now the third one would be domestication and rearing of friendly and harmless animals. Man also started to rear and domesticate animals. Some were from other countries, and some were also of origin. So goats, cattle, sheep, goats, camel, horses, and pigs. These animals were introduced into Africa by foreigners. So pigs, horses, camels, goats were all foreigners. Sheep, goat were all foreign. However, as the cat and guinea fowl were African origin. The fourth one was the development of village settlement. Man started to develop village settlement and also agriculture. Then the last one has to do with cultivation of crops. Man also started to cultivate crops such as wheat, millet, barley, and coal. But so these were some of the points that the examiners were expecting you to give. Now let's take a look at the next question. Says 2. 5 roles played by the Tuareg in the Trans-Saharan trade, and I have almost like 10 points here. The roles played by Tuareg were very, very important in the Trans-Saharan trade. The first role that they played was that they acted as what guides, and I know a lot of you will write this, and they did that for pay. Also, they practiced agriculture, that's they grew crops and reared animals in the WASSCE areas to feed themselves and sold the surplus to the caravan traders, when we know that one of the problems faced the caravans was the fact that they were not getting food to eat. They also dug wells along the caravan routes to supply water to the traders and their animals, donkeys, and camels. Water shortage was also a problem for the caravan traders. 4. They reared animals, that's the sheep of the desert, the camels, which they supplied to the caravan traders to use. 5. The Tuareg acted as interpreters to the caravan traders, since they could speak many of the leading languages of the area involved in the trade, so they also acted as interpreters. Some of the Tuaregs were thieves who also robbed, and I think this is also very, very popular among students. They were thieves who robbed and killed some of the caravan traders. The Tuareg 7. The Tuareg also led a nomadic life, which did not allow them to settle at one place for a long time. Well, this one may not be a strong point. You can take it out. But let's take a look at 8. The Tuareg played an important role in the conduct of the Trans-Saharan trade and the building of Western Sudanese Empire. This was also very, very important. Now, in the areas of the desert where oases existed, the Tuareg planted crops which also provided food for themselves and also sold some to the caravan traders. And so these were some of the roles played by the Tuareg. 5 of them, they were expecting you, 5 or 4 of them, they were expecting you to write them. Let's take a look at, I think the last one, 10, was that the Tuareg also provided horses and camels, which they kept and fed for the use of the Trans-Saharan traders. Okay, let's look at the question number 3. It says 5 factors that facilitated the spread of Egyptian civilization. How did Egyptian civilization spread? 1 was because of the geographical location of Egypt. They had a Nile and also natural barriers. The Nile actually facilitated a lot of people coming in and out of Egypt, and that also led to people coming in and learning the civilization of the Egyptians and taking it, out there. All right. Now let's take a look at agriculture and food surplus was also a very important factor. Irrigation techniques that the Egyptians adopted, the use of the shadoof and trade of agricultural surplus. Some of them, the Egyptians were able to produce more, and so they were supplying some, and that also brought in a lot of people, to come into the kingdom. Trade network also played a very important role in the spread of the Egyptian civilization. Egypt played a very important role in the Trans-Saharan trade. Egypt was one of the trade routes in the Trans-Saharan trade, and therefore it also led to people bringing in more people into the kingdom. Okay, then we also have the political structure. Egypt also embarked on several military conquests, and they also had a strong centralized government, and therefore there was stability, and the people were able to conquer more areas, and the more they conquer, the more they spread their civilizations and their ideas to them. Innovations was also very, very key. The writing system of the Egyptians, the hieroglyphics, the architectural style and the art of Egyptians also led to a lot of people coming in, especially with the introduction of the hieroglyphics and the hieratic. You realize that ideas, were spreading through writing. And also, we also have cultural exchange and migration and settlement. So you can write any of these for them. Let's take a look at question number 4, which says, name the groups, the people that are comprised of the Moli Dagbani. There are 3 of them. We have the Mampusi people, the Dagomba, and the Nanumba. When you write Mamprugu, you are wrong, because Mamprugu was the the kingdom's name, not the names of the people. The people are called Mampusi people. Good. So these were some of the factors that led to the easy defeat of the indigenous people within the north. One was the possession of superior weapons by the invaders, the Moli Dagwani and Co, who came. There was also absence of any strong kingdom in the north to actually fight off the invaders. The invaders also came with a centralized authority, unlike the indigenous people who did not have a centralized, system, and so that also was a factor. Effective military organization was also key to the invaders, and that also aided them to actually defeat the indigenous people. Now, the question number 5 says the indigenous people in the north. I guess list the indigenous people in the north. I think that is what that question was asking for. So no, it says indigenous people, people in the north that did not have a centralized state. Yeah. So these were some of the states or people in the north that did not have a centralized state. Okay, and as I said, they were basically asking about the indigenous people. Now let's move on to the functions of the Tindana. So the Tindana was a custodian of the land. He led his people during annual festivities. He was also part in the installation of a paramount chief. He prayed on behalf of his people in times of danger and disaster. So these were some of the functions of the Tindana. Then you can explain them as well. Now let's move on to question number 6, which says 3 ways by which transporting goods in pre-colonial Ghana: by sea, of course, canoes, through head porters or overland routes, and then by river. So by river, by canoes, and also sometimes they carry it. Then they asked for 4 benefits of long distance trade to Ghana. One was income to Ghanaians. It brought about income. Establishment of towns and trading centers, especially Bego, Manso, and Kumasi, became trading centers and became bigger. Introduction of Islam. Don't forget the trans-Saharan trade also introduced Islam to the north. Then also the development of craft industries, the weaving industry, the leather works, and all of that increased. Then number 7 says factors that worked against the NLM. So basically, they were asking you to talk about the failures of the NLM, and we all know that the NLM had certain demands. However, it failed to meet most of the demands because of certain factors, and they're asking you to mention 4 or 5 of them. The first one was that the NLM created violence, particularly in Asante. They were intimidating the CPP supporters, and so people did not actually like them, and that was one factor that worked against them. Another failure was that they also refused to attend the Achimota Conference on Federalism, despite the fact that they were invited to take part. And don't also forget that one of the demands of the NLM was for federalism, and here we are, we've organized a conference, come and let's discuss. The NLM did not attend, and that also made people to see them as not a serious party or a serious group of people, and therefore they also lost somehow. Now, third, the NLM was organized as tribal and regional movement. Yes, so it was considered as a party for the Ashantis, and so it did not really attract a lot of people, who were not Ashantis. Now, their slogan itself was also a big factor. As a sectionist, Matemehu was the biggest factor because, do you expect other tribes to also vote for you? Now, you win. Now, so of course, a lot of these other tribes may not vote for you. Then the last one was there was a possible fear of Asante's hegemony. Looking at the history from Gold Coast up to that time, and the British were successful to in calming the Ashantis. The people feared that if they had to vote NLM, Ashantis may, because NLM was basically an Ashanti party, and if they voted the NLM, what that means is that Ashanti was going to be again powerful and rule them, and they didn't want that to happen. Good. So let's look at question number 8, which says 5 developments of Gettysburg in health, and one was improvement of healthcare. That he established the Kolebu Hospital. Public healthcare campaigns. He also campaigned against malaria and sleeping sickness. Then also training of medical personnel at the Kolebu Teaching of God Hospital. Then the establishment of preventive health, which was somehow vaccination of course programs were also embarked upon. Then also promotion of nutrition and health issues. These were some of the developments of Gettysburg. Now, the last question was very interesting. Highlight any 5 reasons to support the assertion that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was one of the outstanding nationalist leaders in Ghana. I've already talked about this question that it's kind of tricky, and I know that a lot of students may write the achievement of Nkrumah, which will lead to deviation. You should be very strategic looking at the work of Nkrumah from 1947 up to 1957. So do that work. Go and look into the books, the achievement of Nkrumah in the UGCC and achievement of Nkrumah in the CPP, and see how you can get some 5 reasons to support that assertion. I know you have enjoyed our discussions today. Thank you very much for your time. Do not forget to share, like, and subscribe to this channel. Au revoir.